Reading with your kids.
Hola, niha, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Morenike Oyenusi. She is here to celebrate chasing butterflies in the sunlight. Before we invite Morenike into the studio, we would love to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. It's a beautiful website. My daughter Alejandra really did a great job revamping the website last fall. I really love the look at it. It's really easy to navigate around. You can sign up for our free newsletter there, find out what's coming up on the show, find out what you might have missed, and also find links to download some really fun resources for you and your family. You can also click on the Parents Click Here button at the top of the page, scroll on down to live events. Find out about our live in-person and virtual events. We have two great in-person events coming up on August 28th. Connect Fest. It's a great family music festival happening at the Cape Cod Fairgrounds in Falmouth, Massachusetts. It's a free event, but you do need tickets. You can go to fuseconcerts.org for your free tickets. Also, September 18th, we'll be at the Lowell Kinetic Sculpture Race. An amazing event. I am so excited. That's happening in beautiful downtown Lowell, Massachusetts. You can find out how you can bring the Reading with Your Kids podcast and our totally interactive Family Magic Show in person to your community, or you can opt for a virtual visit and a virtual family literacy fair. We really love creating those literacy fairs for communities and for schools and churches and libraries and like big groups of homeschoolers. If you're an author, please click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. Find out about our great Certified Great Read program. This program has helped so many authors. We are so proud. We've helped so many authors let parents know that their book is worthy of their consideration. Check it all out today. You can find it all at readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from right outside of Baltimore in the wonderful state of Maryland. Our guest today is the author of Chasing Butterflies in the Sunlight. Please welcome to the show, Morenike Oyenusi. Morenike, welcome to the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited to be here today.
I'm really excited to have you here too. Chasing Butterflies in the Sunset. That title, it just brings a smile to my face. That image of being young and being in the sun and chasing beautiful butterflies. It's wonderful. Tell us about your book, please.
So my book, it's a book of stories. It's based loosely on my childhood. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a town called Ile-Ife in Nigeria in West Africa. And we lived on a university campus, and my parents, my father was both my parents were employees of the university. They taught there. And my brother and I had such a wonderful childhood. We grew up on this lovely, beautiful campus, and we had such freedom, to run around and play. So I decided to write this book when I was grown up. It's very loosely based upon the childhood, as I said, but it's a story about Ronke, who's growing up on this university campus, and it traces her life from the time she's 5 years old or 6 years old to the time she's 13. And it just really, each story is about an adventure or an incident in her life, the fun that she has with her friends. She loves to travel. She travels within Nigeria. She travels outside Nigeria to Scotland and different countries. And each tale just tells about her travels and her adventures and her, play with her friends and her excellent family. So it really emphasizes the importance of family life and of friendship.
Yeah. I love this. I think when a lot of people here in the States, when they think of Africa, well, first off, a lot of people here in the States, when they think of Africa, they just think of this Africa. Like it's the whole, everything is the same all over this huge continent. And it's just the same. And I'm imagining a lot of people, when they think of Africa, the images that we conjure up are images that we see a lot in the media, which is a lot of poverty, and help us, we need some help. And, I think that this is a wonderful book that can help people understand that Africa is a beautiful, complex, diverse place, and that there is education going on. There are universities, and not everybody is living in poverty waiting for people in the United States to go over and save them.
Precisely. That's one of the reasons I wrote this book, to dispel some of the myths about Africa. Africa, as you said, is very complex. There's so many different peoples in Africa, so many different terrains, so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds, so many different kinds of upbringing. And I wanted to emphasize, that complexity, and then show a segment of African society, centered on this little girl who's growing up. She's being brought up in a middle class family. Their culture, they're well educated, they travel a lot, and that's one part of Africa that I wanted to show, to show people that, what you see on TV, don't believe that. It's just a piece. It's just one tiny little aspect of Africa. And Africa it's several different countries. It's not one country. Mm-hmm. A lot of people make that mistake. They think, Africa, it's one country. It's several different countries, several different races and ethnicities. So that's what I wanted to bring across. And also to show that, on the other hand, there's a common bond between all of us. What a child wants is the same in Africa or in Nigeria or in this town, is the same as what other children want, which is a desire to be loved, to belong to a family, to belong to a community, to be able to grow up, comfortably and just enjoy being a child. So I wanted to emphasize that common bond as well.
Yeah. That's so important, I think, that idea that kids all want to be loved, mm-hmm. and that we share that. And I think, I think it's important for us to celebrate our differences and just to respect the fact that we are all different and have different abilities and different cultures, and we can, share those differences with us, and those differences can help us grow and learn. But at the very, very core of what's most important, we are all the same. We are all human beings.
Exactly.
We all want to be loved.
That's right.
Yeah.
We all want to be loved. And I see, and I want this book to tell people that. Obviously they're hearing that from all quarters, from all directions, but I think this book in its simplicity really emphasizes that point, that we all, at the core, we're the same, and we have universal needs that, that all children want the same thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then we're also diverse, and so we have to celebrate those differences. And this community in which Ronke, my title character, grows up in, it's a very diverse society. They have people from all over the world coming to teach there, to live there, and to study there. And so Ronke grew up surrounded by, she had friends from Hungary, from Germany, from the United Kingdom, from India, from Nigeria. And it's just, even as a child, I recognized the value of what I was. I was a child growing up there. I didn't know anything about diversity. I didn't know anything about the buzzwords that people talk about now, diversity and, cultural diversity and ethnicity and all that. But I knew it was a special place all the same. The ability, the opportunity to just have so much exposure to people from all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I've shared here on the podcast is my family has hosted international kids in our home. And my daughter went to an international high school here in Boston where her classmates were literally from all over the world. And boy, that was such a wonderful experience for us to have kids from so many different cultures become part of our family, and bring with them their holidays, their foods, their language, and learning about our foods, and having to eat my food because I'm the cook in my house. It's so wonderful. How not every kid can grow up living on a university. Not every family are able to host international kids. How do you think families here in the States and all over the world what can we do to give our kids more opportunities to meet folks from other countries and other cultures?
Yeah, I think you touched upon an aspect of how to do that. The school that my daughters went to, the high school, actually it's a school that goes from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And one of them has left. She's in college now, but my other daughter is still there. But they have exchange programs. Mm-hmm. And I know not every school is going to have that opportunity or the kind of establishment to do that. But they invite students from China, for example, who come and spend a year or two there, and my daughter was opportune to be part of an exchange program with a school in Oxford. She went to this boarding school in Oxford for a month, and, she stayed there and, lived as if she was part of a permanent member of the school. But we also had the girl that she was visiting in Oxford come to Baltimore to spend a month at her school. And that way, they were able to learn about each other's cultures. But there's so many different ways to do this. But at the very least, talk to your children about other cultures, maybe read books about other cultures, maybe go to the library and see what there is in store, maybe watch TV programs selectively, watch the shows on PBS, for example, PBS Kids. So there's so many things. There's National Geographic, that you can read as a family, just to introduce your family members to other cultures. There's always something that you can do, however very little. And, give yourself a challenge. Go out to eat at a different kind of restaurant, a restaurant from an Indian restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, a restaurant from South Africa, or South America, or from Europe, Even eating food gives you an exposure to something different. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned with your international students, you learn about each other's foods, about each other's backgrounds. So I think that, you can start small and just build upon that. Yeah.
Food definitely is a beautiful way to celebrate different cultures. And I know a lot of families they do go out and they get the ethnic food, but I really would encourage families, when you go out for Thai or for Chinese food, when the food comes home, we all have these, access to the internet, so that it's not like when I was growing up where you get Chinese food and then there's, no information that we can get. Now you can find out, where did this food come from? What part of China does this particular dish come from? What is Thailand like? We love the food, but what's the country like? What is this Ethiopian food? Where is Ethiopia on a map? Where can we find it? I think that's a great way to just pique kids' curiosity about the world and get them more interested in learning about people.
That's right. And every incident in one's life is a learning opportunity. You can make the best of it all as little as you want. As you said, go to a restaurant, but even before you go, you can look up on the food, search Google Thailand and find out what kind of foods they have. They have food from different kinds of food. It's not just one kind of food. They have different areas of Thailand, and, there are different kinds of foods from different areas. So you can research that, so you have a little bit of a better understanding. You can, buy some of maybe make the food at home, get a recipe. And I have cookbooks, but I get tons of recipes on the internet. I'm always looking for something different to cook from a from a place that I've never been to, So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then just research, maybe my mother used to do this with me, write a story about Thailand, write a story about a little girl living, growing up in Thailand. So she really encouraged me to write when I was a child about different places. So that's one thing we can do with our children. So, we're going to go to this Thai restaurant. So maybe we can write after we come back, we can write a story. Or maybe we can look for books from Thailand, go to the library or search on the internet and see what kind of books there are.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the idea, and I think it's something that we should really think about as parents. Teachers assign kids, writing subjects all the time. There's no law that says that parents can't do the same thing to encourage their kids to sit down, take out the paper or the keyboard, and imagine themselves in a different country and write a story about being there. Write a story about somebody that they imagine growing up there. What a great, not only a great way to spark kids' imagination, but just to help kids understand that writing stories is something we can do for fun. It doesn't have to always be an assignment.
Precisely. And it's, that's something that I guess I learned, I got my desire to write from that experience with my mother. She would give us, buy us notebooks. So, write. She would get us, paint and, crayons and say draw and paint. She encouraged every artistic side of us. And that's one thing that we can do. And in that process, then you're reading together as a family. You're encouraging your children to read. You're all reading together. You're all sitting down. You can all sit down and discuss those books after you're done.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned about reading, what a wonderful thing to do for your kid after they write a story. When it's time for bed, that's what you're going to read. And you, as a parent, bring that story to life. How much fun will a 7, a 9, a 10-year-old have hearing the most important person in their life, their parent, their mom, their dad, take their words that they wrote on paper and bring it to life and tell the story in a really animated, exciting way. I imagine a kid would be over the moon.
Yes, and it brings back a memory. In fact, it makes me want to cry actually, but one of the chapters in my book is about Ronke going to Niger with her family, with her mother, her brother, and a family friend. And this was actually based on an episode in my life when I went to Niger with my mother, my brother, and our friend. But you know what? My mother got me a notebook for me to write about my travel. I wrote about my travel, I drew pictures, and I still have that today. And that was when I was preparing to write the story, I was able to go back and read that. And that helped me formulate the story about Ronke. Isn't that amazing? It's from years and years ago. I still have this notebook that I wrote telling about our travels to Niger.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Hey, we were talking about how diverse Africa is, and you just mentioned, you talked about growing up in Nigeria, and now telling us about visiting Niger, 2 different countries. Can you tell us a little bit about how Niger and Nigeria are different from each other?
So Nigeria is an English-speaking country. Of course, that most of Africa was colonized. Years and years ago, and Nigeria was colonized by the British. So it has a lot of British traditions, whereas Niger was colonized by the French. So it's primarily a French-speaking country, and it's different in those ways.
Yeah, and imagine the foods are different and the architecture.
The foods are different, right?
Yeah.
And the ethnic groups that comprise Nigeria and Niger are different, but I think there's a little bit of an overlap with Niger and Nigeria, because in the north of Nigeria, we have the Fulani people. And in Niger, we also have the Fulani people, we share. So, Niger is to the north of Nigeria, and so we share a common boundary. And so obviously there's an overlap between ethnic groups between the 2 countries. And, the Fulani are nomadic people. They, at least I don't know about now, but they would, go from place to place with their cattle, and so they traveled a lot. And so there's a little bit of an overlap there with the ethnic groups.
Wow, fascinating. This is really fascinating. Hey, I'm curious. You have a background. You studied and are a lawyer. How did the lawyer and children's author, how did these come together?
So, as I said, when I was growing up, my mother always said, told me, you're very gifted. You're going to write a story one day. And I had that in the back of my mind. But anyway, of course, I became a lawyer. I went to school. I went to boarding school in England. I did start off school in Nigeria, and then I ended up in boarding school in England, and I went to university in England. And when I was in boarding school, I was debating what should I study when I go to university, and I wasn't really sure. And, looked at different careers. And at the end of the day, I said, well, lawyers, they write, and I like to write, and they read a lot, and I like to read a lot. So I think and I do also have the art subjects that go with being a lawyer, so I think I'm going to study law. And then as it so happened, my mother was also a lawyer. When she graduated from college, she became a lawyer, although she didn't practice as a lawyer for most of her adult life. So I think my mother's influence, obviously, was there, guiding me to become a lawyer and also to become a writer.
That's wonderful. I love that. Hey, I know people are going to want to know where they can go to find out more about chasing butterflies in the sunlight. So where's the best place to connect with you?
So the best place is probably on my website, which is www.paradiserestoredpublishing.com. www.paradiserestoredpublishing.com. And that's the website of the publishing entity that I set up to publish my book and to publish other books in the future.
Yeah. Just before we go, was there a reason why you chose that name for your publishing company, Paradise Restored?
So the idea is that when you read, you can attain when you read, you can actually enter paradise, because reading is such a beautiful, lovely experience. So you can actually sit down with a book and have that experience as if you're in paradise. It's such an enjoyable experience. So I wanted to show that you can attain a paradisical experience by reading a good book. And also the name came from also the fact that, because I'm a Christian, and when you give your life to Christ, then you can, right here on earth, you can also enjoy that kind of experience.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Our pastor, an old pastor at our church, said to me one time, he said, Jed, when you choose to love someone and that person chooses to love you back just out of love, at that moment, you're both experiencing paradise and what heaven is like.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I agree with that. Yeah. Isn't that lovely?
It really is. It really is. Well, we've had a wonderful time speaking to the author of Chasing Butterflies in the Sunlight, Morenike Oyenusi. Morenike, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so very much. I enjoyed my time with you.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are continuing our double-header Saturdays. 2 great guests coming to you in the next episode, Sarah Atherton and Shani King. Please be sure to join us. Hey, the best way to make sure that you haven't missed a show is to subscribe to the show. And you can subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Spotify, Ghana, Himalaya, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Podbean, Stitcher Radio. There's dozens and dozens more. Basically, wherever you can find a podcast, you can find the Reading with Your Kids podcast. And please connect with us on social media as well. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Jedley Magic on Twitter, and at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Morenike Oyenusi. Please be sure to check out Chasing Butterflies in the Sunlight. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Helen Frazier, Justina Thompson. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.